So when you're thinking about building a warm-up from the inside out, a couple key components we like that have really helped our patients with CF is starting with breathing exercises. So we talked about respiratory flow and how the utilization of oxygen is going to be key on multiple components, but when you're breathing in and you're exhaling, there's pleural pressure within that are lining the lungs and the thoracic wall or your thoracic cage, and you also have breathing muscles or respiratory muscles that also aid in posture and movement. So I always like to start with breathing exercises because that's the first way you can help kind of reposition your body and get it going. Plus, as you know, when you exercise, your respiratory rate's going to go up, right? So it's just like stretching a muscle before, like your quads before you go run. You're stretching your quads, so then when you go run, they're not going to stay tight. Well, we want to take the same idea when you're talking about breathing and getting into a warm-up. Starting with breathing exercises kind of gets that internal part of the cage going to prepare for what it's about to do. And then this leads us kind of to central to peripheral in when we're talking about direction and where you're going. Central being more of that thorax region where the lungs are, where the abdominal muscles are. You want to work on getting this core region here from your rib cage down to your kind of pelvis in a sense, or honestly from your neck all the way down to your pelvic floor, kind of on the right track, because wherever this starts and kind of initiates movement, your legs and your arms, the peripheral components, are then going to follow. So you want to make sure that when you're working with a warm-up, you start kind of inner in a sense, or what we call proximal to distal. And then you also want to think an integration of movement from the ground up, right? So starting supine, which would be laying on your back, getting a reference point in contact of letting your body feel the ground, and then working on breathing exercises from that position. Then you'll shift and roll over to prone, where you're working more on your stomach, whether that's a plank or a side plank. Quadruped is going to be on all fours. And then half kneeling would be in one knee down, one knee forward, as if you're in the bottom of a lunge. And then standing, and then staggered stance. So this kind of movement progression helps you utilize going from the ground to standing. And once again, this is not exactly the direct way you have to go. You may start supine and you don't have a lot of time, so you may jump to quadruped, then half kneeling and standing. But kind of taking some form where you're starting on the ground and then eventually to a half kneeling position and standing is a great integration and way how you can approach your workout, or setting yourself up to kind of utilize every muscle when it's needed. So when you're thinking about your exercise warm-up within the whole idea of going 5 to 15 minutes, you want to think about, do you have breathing exercises in there, whether that's on the ground or standing? Do you have exercises that start targeting the central aspect of your body and then kind of move its way out to the peripheral? And do you have an integration or a progression of exercises that starts you from the ground all the way to standing? Now, if you do, that's phenomenal. You can work on switching up your exercises, whether that's sets, reps, the different positions and whatnot. But if you don't, try and plug one of these in to the area that you're missing and see how that kind of changes your warm-up. Because a lot of times, sometimes we're just missing that little bit. And it could be going from changing your warm-up from, going from the ground to standing, or maybe it's like, hey, you know what, I don't have a lot of breathing exercises or any breathing exercises in my routine. So think about these 4 things when you're programming within your warm-up and see what works for you. And the key with this is first stay consistent. But if you see a change or a difference when you're doing this, make a mental note, because your body is going to tell you things, and it's going to say, hey, I love this, or hey, I don't like this. One key that we do is when you're changing things up, you want to do it for a few times before you kind of make a judgment. So start with a neutral perspective when you're doing an exercise, because if you do something new, it's going to feel different, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It may improve your respiratory rates, it may be very difficult in a sense, but sometimes it's just your body and your brain kind of creating that mind-body connection and getting it to utilize it. And then eventually, after you do a few sets or reps or do it a couple times throughout your kind of workout program, things kind of set themselves into place. So don't write something off right away until you've done it a few times. Let your body kind of enjoy it for a little bit, understand it, and then transfer from there.